Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to look at books 8 and 9 of John Flanigan's The Ranger's Apprentice series. Now, if you have not seen the rest of this series, please check those out. Otherwise, this is not going to make sense. These books have to be read in order, mostly. Book 7, actually, that's the exception. Book 7, time-wise, actually fixed between books 4 and 5. But again, normally you have to read these in order. This is the order he's written them in. So we are going to be looking at the Kings of Clonmel and Holt's Peril. Now these books are connected, similar to books 2 through 4 and then 5 and 6. So in this story, we start off with Will, who's a full ranger. This takes place after the siege of McDraw. And he's going to the yearly gathering of the Rangers, and Holt is not there. He is off in Clonmel, which is a neighboring country, where they are suspecting of this religious cult. It's a screwed up little system that they previously chased out of Arloon. So what these guys do, they're not really a religious cult. They're thieves. They pretend to be a religious cult. They set up in a little town. They set up their little church. They don't try to convert anybody. But then all of a sudden, raids are happening. Things are dying. Things are being killed. There's all sorts of kind of stuff going on. And essentially, the religious group says, these bandits will stop attacking you because if you basically convert and give us your gold, because they worship our God and they don't want to make him mad. And then they take all the gold and flee. So that's what they do. They're not a religious cult. They're bandits. Half of them pretend to be a religious cult, and the other half attack and kill things. And yes, they have big things going on and try to convert people because again, they're trying to steal their gold. And what they've decided to do is in this country, Clonmel is one kingdom within kind of a scattered country which doesn't have a unified government, and they're constantly killing each other and fighting each other, and a lot of intrigue there. And essentially these groups have decided to they've conquered these other little kingdoms and are using them as basically the kings as puppet kings, and they've taken everything. So and there Clonmel is the last before they go attacking Arloon, which is their point, which is why Holt's irritated. So he's part of that story. As you see Will doing some training. He's put with some three young apprentices, and they're given essentially a written, not necessarily written assignment, but they're given a scenario that they have to come up with the answer to. And this scenario almost completely mirrors Will's interactions with his McDraw act. Basically what happened in the previous book, the Siege of McDraw. And the kids know this, and they try to basically do exactly what he did. Only they don't have Scandians. They have players and acrobats, or mostly just the acrobats. And basically this is what they give him. And he's like, no, you cannot do this. This is what you have. Go back and figure this out. So, and that's kind of the completion of that. And then essentially Holt shows up. Now he, in the previous book, I believe, or Eric's rebrands him, he marries Lady Pauline, who's the head of the diplomatic corps at Redmont. So she makes Will promise before he takes Horace and Will off to this country to help deal with issues, to basically makes Will promise to protect Holt, and that pays more attention to Holt's Peril. So it's kind of important that he's gotten married and he's getting older. And so these three go off because he likes Horace, and Horace is a useful sword to have along, and of course Will's his former apprentice, so he trusts him. And he nearly got himself killed previously. He dealt with the cult. He knows what the heck they're up to. He got chased up into the kind of into the rocky hills, and was being followed by these guys because they have assassins and they want him dead. They realize who the heck Halt is. Well, sort of. They realize Halt chased them out of their previous country. You find out in this book who Halt really was prior to becoming a ranger. So he survives and comes back after sending this guy basically disguised as him and jumping over a cliff into ponds to get dogs to chase him, and he's able to get home and tells them kind of what's going on. It's like, okay, I need help. So he grabs Will and Horace and they go and start investigating this. Again, Holt and Horace go alone and go deal with the king, and Will kind of starts investigating and sneaking into the camps and pretending to be a member of this religious cult to kind of figure out what's going on. And of course you find out that Holt is technically the heir to the throne of Clonmel. His brother tried to kill him, essentially by poison. I think he survived. Obviously he survived and then proceeded to leave. You find out that's there's a bit of an explanation of the short story in book 11, which is a series of short stories which I do cover. So they are dealing with a very idiotic, very complacent brother who, of course, is not particularly happy to see his big brother showing up. Their nephew, both Holt and obviously his man's nephew, their sister's child, is the head of the military, and he's actually far more intelligent. And the king doesn't want to pay attention, and he doesn't think the religious cult is really a cult or that they're dangerous. He doesn't believe Holt whatsoever, but he eventually gets knocked out, and Holt takes on his position because nobody can really tell all that closely because they look alike. All Holt has to do is, shave his beard. So, and yes, this was Horace's idea to do this, and the nephew goes along with it, and they chase out. And then Will shows up and says, yeah, they've gotten an angry mob. They're going to come try to take over things. And so Will gets back. He has to escape them because they kind of figure it's like, you shouldn't be leaving. He's like, I'm leaving. And he gets away. And he tells Will and what's going on. And you have the angry mob, and the king doesn't obey what he's supposed to do because apparently they had previously made a deal. And because now it's Halt. And he chases them off, and eventually these guys get really pissed off because they're chased out of this country, and they realize the gig is up, and they run off and disappear. And eventually I believe the king dies, and they have to go bury him. That's kind of the end of the story. They bury him, and the nephew becomes in charge because Holt doesn't want the job. He's a ranger. He's married. He wants nothing to do with this country. He left many, many years ago when he was a young man. And again, that's a short story that's done later, and I explain that in that video. And you don't know about any of this when you read this book. So that's the end of this book. In Holt's Peril, what happens is they have to convince smugglers with a little bit of force. Will tries to do it nicely, then can't do it because they don't take money. This guy keeps secrets. And Holt and Horace do it by force. And essentially, I believe Horace kills his two minions. So they find out where this guy took him. They say, I was going here and then I dropped them off. So they go there. I can't remember exactly where it is in this other, eventually, country. And they're chasing them. But then they realize they're being followed, and they send assassins to hurt Holt. And there's a bit of a scuffle, and Holt is poisoned by a poison arrow. And they don't realize it at first until essentially he starts becoming very, very sick. So Will has to take his pony and Holt's horse and they are in the north because he goes through, they're in the Scotty land. And he has to go to the McDraw and get through McDraw and get his healer friend. And he goes day and night for a couple of days till he gets there and says, I need your help. And he brings back his friend. Again, I think they travel day and night. And friends looks at him, it's like, okay, I know what poison this is. It's very, very bad, but there's two anecdotes because you can do two different versions of it. So they end up capturing the guy who shot him. And they have him tied up. But he's like, you can kill me, you can torture me, but I'm not telling you. So Horace, pissed off, poisons him with the same poison that he poisoned Holt with. And then starts making him run around to get the poison running through his veins. So it's like, now you got to tell us or you die a painful death. So he tells them. They they give the antidote to Halt. They give the antidote to this guy because, they kind of promised. He starts getting away, tries to kill Horace. Holt wakes up long enough to alert Will, who rescues Horace, and then I believe they kill him. And then they have to go deal with the cult, because again, these cults tried to kill them. They're pissed off, and they're irritating, and they're back to their old tricks, because that's what they do. And eventually they do a bunch of smoke and mirrors, and they're in a cave, and Will sees the leader escaping when he realizes things were turning on him, and Will shoots a smoke bomb and something that's gonna, basically fireworks, to destroy the cave at this guy, knowing it's going to collapse things. And that's what it does. They escape. But of course, this town that they were dealing with, gold is now buried there. And that's kind of how it ends. And then Holt, his healer friend, Horace, head home. And he basically, while Holt and Horace head straight home, Will escorts his healer friend back to where he was, and before he leaves, the dog he had left behind had puppies, and he's given this little puppy called Ebony. So he gets a puppy at the end of this. You have Will, who's now an adult, and he's happy to get this border collar puppy. So it's a kind of a happy ending. So that is the end of these two books. The next book is a standalone, and then you have the father book. So if you like this review, check out everything out. That is My Fussing Toddler. Like and subscribe. I will see you soon. Thank you.